So I'm gonna kind of shoot from the hip on this one. Okay, this is I'm gonna say this is a random commentary and shit. I was a while back. I was making a commentary. I was doing an episode on a influencer who was cheating on her husband, and she ain't in no great condition physically and shit. Okay, she's like a cat ass, skank. And I tripped on the fact that she had slept with this rapper, Bandman Kevo. He's a businessman or whatnot, but he's a professional simp. He's a simp of the highest order and shit. If they had a boule for simps, this motherfucker would be in a ruling class, okay? So, I'm not going to talk about Bandman Kevo and his simping and everything. I mean, he could teach other simps a thing or two about doing it right and shit. What I am going to talk about is that, I like did a little joke in my video where compared him to this motherfucker I saw in I forgot the brother's name, and no disrespect to that. He's a rapper from back in the day, like in my youth. Um, but I compared the Bandman Kevo to this motherfucker in House Party, the first House Party movie. This kind of big ham bone looking nigga, turtle face looking nigga that was drunk and shit and tried to hang with Kid from Kid and Play and his two female leads in a movie, in a dance contest, and the motherfucker passed out and shit, okay? It's a bit of word salad and shit. Just bear with me and shit. While I was doing that editing, like I had pulled down a clip from House Party and I was watching the clip, like the dance scene. And I just like was checking out like AJ Johnson and Tisha Campbell with the two female leads. I think that chick's name was the dark one's Shireen and the other one's name is Sydney and shit. And I was like looking at it and I thought about like I remember when that shit came out, I was dating my first girlfriend and we went to see this fucking movie. And like when I look at Tisha Campbell back in the day, like I have weird feelings about it because I watched her grow up on screen and shit. She had did a bunch of movies. She had even did this shit called Rooftop with Jason Gedrick, where she was unrecognizable. She was like a poo button shit out in the street. And at one point, like a white character, like a dirty villain, had actually took his foot and kicked her in the ass, and he didn't think that's nothing of her. And I looked at it, I was like, man, this chick looks so familiar. I'm looking at her house party and shit. And I don't know if that was around the same time the School Days came out or something, but like in School Days, they dolled her up big time and shit. They dolled her the fuck up. And I was like, damn, I beat that shit up. But like I had a certain, I'm a certain way. I'm real picky. I'm a fucking Aries. So like I thought she was hot as fuck in School Days, but I hated her slender build because like she didn't have no hips. You know. I'm not gonna get on it, man. This is a random commentary. Okay, you could hang out if you want to, but like she had no hips, and I had seen, growing up, I had seen a lot of slender women with like pronounced hips and shit. So I just thought it was shitty, and I thought that's what she looked like. I really thought that's what she looked like. I was like, this bitch fine as fuck, man. I don't, bang her and grab her hair and all, but like, she did not compare in any way to the chick that I went to the movies with. Okay, who was in that same category. She did not compare. She was beneath her. The chick that I had went to the movies with could like have a seat on the throne and put her fucking leg on this bitch back. Anyway, I don't want to go no further. I know that bitch probably stalking me, but I was watching the clip from House Party, and I was watching them. They're supposed to be high school kids and shit. They're obviously young adults and shit, but they're playing teenagers, which was the part for the course. When I was growing up and shit, a lot of movies with teenagers, they were just young adults. Nowadays, you're seeing actual kids playing kids and shit, so it's kind of weird and shit. But back in the day, it was adults, young adults or not so young adults playing fucking teenagers. So they got away with a bunch of shit. They can make teenage movies where they banged and shit and show like nudity and stuff like that. I was also watching House Party and shit, and I see these two females. And the way they're framing it, they try to make like the dark skinned chick look like she's some kind of gold digger or something. Like, and they showed that she was from the projects and shit. And then the light skinned one played by Tisha Campbell was from an affluent family and shit. She had parents who were quite a bit older than her, So they did things right. And the other girl lived in the projects and shit. And Sydney was like presumably slumming down there with her friend, trying to get her legitimacy, her street cred off her dark skinned friend. So in the movie, they try to make you try to think like the black chick is an asshole or something because she won't give a kid no pussy. I look at it quite differently today. Through the lens of SYSBM. It's odd to see, but like I actually believe that today that the darker skinned woman is the more positive of the duo. Okay, she's the more positive of the duo and whatnot. She was not actually promiscuous and whatnot. She was a tease and everything, yeah. And she was hypergamous to a fault. Okay, she was hypergamous. Most women are. We know this and shit. Except the problem is that in our communities, that women are raising a lot of their sons. Single parent households raising a son with a feminized mindset. Shit, it leaves them at a disadvantage against somebody who has generations of malicious social engineering. I'll put it that way. It's as nice as I could be on a Saturday afternoon. But I'm like, look at this shit, man. And, the dark skinned chick looked like kind of like a catch and shit. If you somebody just want to be fucking around in the community and shit. She actually seemed like she had some kind of ethics and shit. She was not banging. They didn't show her fucking with nobody or kissing nobody in the movie and shit, okay? And then the light skinned, Tisha Campbell's character, Sydney, is the more shady of the two characters and shit. Like she's from an affluent neighborhood and shit. Her parents are much older, so they're probably not paying attention and shit. And so during the course of the movie, you see her, you know, with her friend in Congress and shit, acting like assholes at school. They act like assholes. These characters are assholes. Even back in the day when the geek was a high school student, I would give them both the Stone Cold Steve Austin, middle fingers and shit, because of their behavior. You always see them huddled up together and shit. It's that kind of shit back in the. I don't know how it is for you young kings today, but like sometimes you would go to the club and you see bitches dancing with other bitches. Like, they want niggas to come up just like it's like talk some shit. And I never fell for that my whole fucking life. A lot of my friends did, the stupid pick me dance like at the club and got fucked and shredded. And I never did that on general principle and shit. So I'm like watching this shit. And I noticed that the dark skinned chick is, while she's a tease and everything, and she's not really dressed provocatively. She's just dressed for the times, kind of garish. It's like the cusp. It came out in 1990, but it seemed like it was made a year earlier or something. But did you kind of dress, conservatively compared to today? And you see Sydney, you see Tisha Campbell, and it's like, man, that bitch got a nappy. She's nappy as fuck. One of the nappiest light-skinned headed chicks I ever saw. She's skinny. They both have similar builds. So I kind of had a problem. I thought maybe they should got like a female that had a different build than the other one, but they were similar. They're both tall, slender women and shit. The dark skinned sister was pretty as fuck. The light skinned chick was passable, but that hairstyle was fucked up, and they made it worse by putting like a little bucket hat on her head or something. And then later in the movie, you see her and the other light skinned nigga, kids, punk ass. They attempt to hook up and shit. They attempt to hook up. But it doesn't go down because she has a condom and shit. It just didn't ring true. It just felt like, she had all this like time on her hands and her parents were older and couldn't pay attention. That she would probably get it on, she'd probably hit it off with him and shit. It just didn't ring true for me, because they showed him go for a condom and it was like old or something, or it was like maybe he had fucked another bitch and rewrapped the condom. I don't know what the fuck was wrong with the condom. It was just shitty as fuck. He implied some questions about doing other things sexually, and she said no, pointedly, and then like I guess the parents come home and yeah, and I give it to Tisha Campbell and shit. She actually did some service to the movie, the House Party movie. I think it might have been PG-13 or R for language and some content and shit. But like they showed Tisha Campbell jump up and jump out of her clothes, and you got to see her like body, like she had this lean model-less body. I don't have a problem with it and shit, but she had no. I was just like, man, she feel like a boy or something, man. And she got a thong on. She had like a skimpy, some little tiny skimpy panties and shit. In the context of the film's universe, don't like a lot of high school girls back in the days, like not wearing that shit. Their mother's not buying them shit. I actually know a mother that was talking to me about whooping her daughter's ass because she found a pair of panties like that in her drawer when she was cleaning up. And I just, when I look at Tisha Campbell's Sydney character, she just reads kind of shady, right? So I just like it didn't sit right with me. It's just like, oh fuck, kid got out. I didn't care the kid didn't get laid and shit because he was soft as fuck and shit, like dealing with stuff, And in the context of the movie, he's a biracial and shit. His mother's actually white and has passed away before the events of the movie. So he's left with a blue collar father and shit. I thought it was cool that it showed different types of black people. I thought it was cool. I didn't mind that shit. But then, like, during the time between that and the sequel that followed, I moved to the West Coast. Right, I moved to the West Coast in my infancy, in my adult infancy. I was in I was in the West Coast, and I ended up going to the Egyptian Theater when it existed. In its previous form, as a giant, screen. It was kind of like an IMAX almost screen from back in the yesteryear. I went to the movies. I used to go to movies there. It was real fucking cheap, and they had the giant IMAX size screen. And I was at a movie, and they showed a bunch of. This was when like the second. A lot of people don't know this, but like in the '90s or whatever, there was a second, surge of black movie produced movies because they made money and shit, based off the Spike Lee shit and all that. They were kind of trying to say it's like conscious and shit, but then they just like rap, they brought in the gangster shit and everything, like New Jack City, all that crap. So I'm watching that shit. I think I saw a trailer for like Juice and shit, and then like some other shit. I was at a horror movie, and they showed like a trailer for House Party 2, where they were in college. I was like fucking clapping. I was like, yeah, we're gonna see some more cool shit. Now maybe kid gonna get some pussy this time, right? So I see the trailer. The trailer looks okay, but I noticed that the dark skinned sister is missing from the movie. The dark skinned chick is missing from the movie, and I see a bunch of bullshit, right? That I don't understand. And then it just Robin Harris had passed away, so I was like, maybe that's why they setting this shit in college. Maybe they'll just gloss over it, and won't mention that he's died or anything. Just do a dedicated to. But no, they made it a plot point. Later on, I would find out that two guys who directed the movie were actually guys that were supposed to be producing the movie, and they received a huge fucking grant. They received like over $40 million to finance black movies, right? They received a grant, I think, from Morgan Creek or something, to produce these black movies and shit. But instead of doing their job like they were supposed to find directors to make black movies. They decided to keep the money for themselves and shoot a fast track a House Party 2 sequel. And that's what we got and shit, and I'm very thankful, back in the day, I'm very thankful that Martin Lawrence returned in the sequel and shit because he was the best thing in the fucking movie, right? You get this convoluted, plot line where kid's dad is dead. They pulled a Black Panther. They pulled a Wakanda Forever and shit with Robin Harris and shit. Rest in power, my brother. And the kid's in college. He's lost his tuition money, and he's trying to squeeze through the cracks while finding some more money to pay the bill before anyone discovers that he's not supposed to be, he's not legitimately enrolled and shit. And while he's there, Sydney is also the Sydney character. Tisha Campbell has returned. And she is in the college, and she is all right because, as you know, in the first movie, she was presented as affluent, okay? Affluent and slumming down in the streets with the regular kids, at least the middle class kids and shit, I guess you would call kid and all that bullshit. And the play character is not in college. He's a pookie. He's full pookie, even though the guy looks like a lightweight and shit. In real life, he supposedly was a thuggo and shit. But in the movies, he's presented as a lightweight and shit. Until the sequel, he's he's a full-on pookie. And Martin Lawrence is a clown and shit, but he's funny as fuck. So in the movie, kid is going through all this shit, and fucking Sydney, true to form and shit, that is not suspicion of disbelief. She is giving him the blues. She is unsympathetic to his situation and shit, and duplicitous and hypergamous to a fault and shit. Almost getting assaulted because of her own stupid actions later in the movie. Alright? And she was willing to cheat on him with a big ass ham bone nigga. Played by Christopher Judd and shit. Unrecognizable Christopher Judd. I didn't know who that motherfucker was. Then later on I found out he was the same big ass nigga from Stargate SG-1. Fuck that shit. This nigga was in that last Christian Bale Batman movie. He was the black dude who had his ass whooped on the ice. I put it that way and shit. I'm really sorry for the word salad. This is an impromptu, commentary and shit. And I'm just talking about the Sydney character, how she was actually an asshole and a villain and shit. Okay? Because in the movie, in the sequel, kid is going through all this shit And every time he turns up to talk to her, she gives him the business, eventually breaking it off with him and shit because she can't be bothered to be an emotional support for him in a time of need, even knowing that his father had passed away. She didn't give a fuck. She was living her best life, and she was being groomed by Queen Latifah's character, who is staunchly sexually ambiguous. Okay, they kept it real at the edge there, and I didn't appreciate that. Queen Latifah's character was actually from the community and shit. The Skittles community. They should have just went full blast with it and had it like she's scheming too. Okay, I feel like the character played the male character that was later on tried to assault her. I feel like him and Queen Latifah's character should have been merged into one. It should have just been Queen Latifah instead. They shouldn't even had that brother in there. It was fucking funny and shit. That guy was like a black boule coon and shit. No, very unique character that we haven't seen that archetype since. I would like to see that character return because it is a part of our community and shit. Christopher Judge, man. He was a four-eyed thuggo, undercover pookie and shit. And he at least right before he just went full villain and he went full retard with the shit, he nearly seduced Tisha Campbell's character and shit out in the open. If it wasn't for Queen Latifah, coming in as part of that unconventional love triangle and shit. Because this scene, when you look at the scene, it seems like Queen Latifah's like, this is, her attitude is like Tisha Campbell is her bitch and shit. And she does everything in her power to separate them and shit. And Tisha Campbell, instead of, sticking with her man, the light-skinned, the Steph Curry of the movie, kid shit. She's like listening to Queen Latifah to all this bullshit. She's getting into she's a fake pro whack and shit in the movie. She actually changes her usual clothing into like some African shit. And I think that's funny. It's funny as fuck when she does that. She actually puts on like a dashiki and a little pillbox hat and shit at one point. And it's funny as fuck because this was the version of Queen Latifah that wore the crown and shit. Right before she stopped doing that. They show Queen Latifah looking at her sitting in the apartment. Kid had just told her off. Basically, they shied around it, but really, Kid told like, yeah, if you read between the lines, Kid's like, hey, you trying to fuck too, So like Queen Latifah sees her with the fucking, clothes on, and she's just like, take that shit off. Even she knew she was a fake ass bitch. She was a fake ass bitch. And then like old girl goes to a party, and she's still like, even though she had done all this nasty shit and been a fuck all shit all unreliable girlfriend, she still had the wherewithal. She saw Kid just hugging some random girl, even though she had dumped his ass and treated him like trash before that happened. Even though his father had recently passed and they were supposed to be in some kind of relationship, right? So she had treated him like trash, and then she ends up drinking and shit, with the thuggo, with the undercover thuggo and shit, like big football playing nigga. And he almost is like assaulted her. The whole movie's it's trash. I won't go no further. You can watch either movie. It's still more entertaining than the shit that followed. The third sequel and shit, in which Tisha Campbell actually had a cameo that made no fucking sense. It's like, why have her as a cameo if you're not gonna have her in a fucking movie and give Kid another love interest? Why have her as a cameo and shit? They didn't write. It was hacks writing the shit. Because part of that shit was probably money laundering or something, But she's such a shitty character. She's a shit character. The Sydney character from the House Party universe. The first one is the bad girl of the duo between her and the dark-skinned chick. I don't know why the dark-skinned one wasn't put in the movies. Maybe she didn't want to mess around with a small head or something. I know there's some video on the platform where she explains that, but like I always think that's bullshit. Because I used to live on the West Coast. I used to live my first apartment was in Hollywood. The first apartment I ever had under my name, I signed the lease, was in the heart of Hollywood, man. And I've seen a lot of crazy shit. So, like, whatever thing she's going to say about why she wasn't in the fucking movie, I just read between the lines and shit. Tisha Campbell grew up in the business and shit. She's always going to find work, or she always was. She's aged out now. And, looking back on it and shit, I was, like, in the House Party movies, when I saw the two girls together, the dark-skinned girl was appealing and shit initially. And, I thought Tisha Campbell, I was like, man, who the fuck fucked her up, man? Her clothes is fucked up. She wears some fucked up, retarded clothes. And then you look at it, you kind of think about it now. She's wearing those clothes because she's pretending to be the dark skinned girl and shit. She's stealing her style and everything. She doesn't have anything of her own and shit. She's grown up in an affluent, environment and shit with much older parents that are professionals that you actually see in the movie. In the second movie and shit, because she has no fucking identity, she's easily led around by the nose and is nearly sexually assaulted by a dude that was gonna bust her shit up, probably go raw dog and, knock her up or something, and then she'll be out of this shit, and later on you see her with one of these, theoretically you'll see her, if you follow the trajectory of the behaviors, a lot of black sisters and shit in college and shit end up in these situations, she's gonna end up being some kind of man-hating misandrist, probably a lesbian with a fucking head wrap on or something. Yeah, she appeared in the third movie. And you know what's funny in the third movie? The kid's new love interest runs across her, and they have a very brief conversation and she walks away. And the new girl looks at her as she walks away with her friend. And they say, her booty ain't big or nothing. Because some idiot had wrote this, made some joke about that she had a big ass or something. And that's laughable if you've ever seen Tisha Campbell. She is long and lean and shit, although these days she's shaped more like a square than a rectangle. And it's fucked up. But, hey, getting to the end of this commentary and everything, you look back at House Party and shit, especially the first one, the two girls, the two female leads and shit. It's one time a dark-skinned girl was presented in a subversive, favorable light and shit, as opposed to the light-skinned girl, who was a fucking poser. And, criminally hypergamous and shit. You young kings out there, I hope you enjoyed this commentary. And I just like to say that, keep your head on a swivel, protect your back, and above all else, protect your seed and shit. Protect your future, man. Okay, you decide who sit at the table. SYSBM equals save yourself, black man.
This message has been paid for by the Dusties. Yes, the niggas you love to hate.